Okay.
Sure. So to give a very quick recap, so obviously we're talking about public projects, private projects, a CAS agent associated to a private project, or my project is private. You know, how do we handle requesting permission and that permissions model? I would like us to just think about perhaps there's two definitions of private. There's, or visibility, in that there's something that's private, like a CAS agent running on a project that's private, that private in the sense the internet or other people outside my group cannot see, but I can see. And then there's the completely separate use case of it is a private project that I can't even see. I don't have any visibility into that. And I think they're distinct for two different reasons. One, you know, you see a lot of companies that will make all their projects private, but within them, their own company, they're happy for cross repo like permissions and communication. We should try and enable that to be as seamless as possible. But if there's a project or a CAS agent that's in a project I cannot see at all, there's how do we handle that? You know, we can certainly request access into that, but also the discoverability part. How as a user who can't even see into a repo know that CAS agent exists? And if we have to be careful, because if we're like allowing people to request access into CAS agents in private repos, is that leaking some kind of information? Because they can go like, I'm going to try and request access. And, you know, that's kind of a way of people to try and figure out who's got CAS agents. Does that kind of, that's another consideration. If a repo is private and you as a user can't see it, in theory, you cannot know anything about that project for real kind of secure, even though it might be just a private in your company or whatever. We have to be very, very careful about what we're going to allow people to do into something that is private. So it may be we have to kind of compromise and say something like, you as a user have to be able to see any project with a CAS agent if you want to request access to it. That might be okay to start with. There might be other people who want more permissions. That maybe we can say you can access into a private project, you can request, but only if you're in the same group or something. So I can't just request access into random repos across GitLab trying to see if anyone's going to click the button kind of thing.
Yeah, this is stuff that very good points.
Do you think agent CAS is something that should be private and should be non-accessible? So if we said, okay, whenever you have a project that you have an agent CAS configuration, it should be public, at least your group, not public across for other people. But do you think there are security concerns with this solution?
There shouldn't be, with the exception, as long as we're very, very, very confident that anything we're going to configure in CAS does not contain any passwords or secrets. And that is a hard question right now because CAS is very simple. And if I looked at CAS right now, I can say, yeah, look, I don't think there will be any passwords or secrets in the configuration repo for CAS right now. But what if we want to have CAS to start to do bigger integrations, or, you know, starting to talk to other issue tracking? I don't know, but we must always be careful of, I think at the moment, a CAS configuration repo, there's nothing in there that is dangerous for anyone to know. But we must also remember in the future that if we make that decision now, we must respect that decision when we're adding new features. And
new features as well. Yeah, because the other aspect is that, especially cross-group ones, is that the CAS repo belongs to a project and belongs to a group. So the very existence of that group, sometimes you want it to remain completely private.
Yes.
Right. So like company top secret project group or something like that, you know, for example.
So yeah.
I didn't get that. Thong, can you repeat a bit different?
So for example, if our CAS config project exists in a group that's top secret, say top secret group, and then this CAS group requests permissions from normal group / project, so completely different group. So now because we have to show like some level of where this agent is coming from. So we have to kind of show the full path, right? Of say top secret project / CAS project / agent. So now the developers or the maintainers of normal group can now see like this top secret group exists now. So it's an information link, right? In a sense, it's very kind of like GitLab problem to have. I don't know whether we've given up on it. I think we haven't. But it's very hard problem because we have all these vulnerabilities coming, and we always try to fix it as well. Because when someone goes to gitlab.com/top secret group, if you don't have access to it, it should just return exist as if it never existed. So we want to maintain that illusion of that group doesn't exist.
Exactly.
But it doesn't work, I think. To be honest, like you can always just create a new group, say top secret.
Yeah.
But if you know the name of the group, then yeah, all bets are off. But you already know the name of the group. Yeah. So that's the idea.
So there's one way to look at it would be, if it's a private group, maybe it's like if everything is public. So if everything is public, you know, it would be easy for, you know, requests to come either way, and people, as long as there's a request and people, the other side accepts that. For public, it's very easy. Maybe, I think what we're going to have to look at is probably just, we have to kind of pick some hard rules, even if they're not the best, and just kind of say, these are the rules. So it could be like, if your CAS manifest project is private, no one's allowed to request into it. You have to give permissions out. You as the private owner have to say, yes, this group can do this. Yes, this can do that. And as a developer, that's not great. That's not the best, because you got to go and hassle someone in the private group to give you permission, but at least it's secure. So I think we're going to be that constant trade-off of, are we going to make things a little bit worse for private groups, but probably more secure? Because I can't see a model where, as a developer, I would like to request into a private group that is going to be 100% safe. So maybe for private groups, for at least a private CAS agent, we may just have to say, if you're going to make the CAS agent private, which is fine, then you are going to have to explicitly tell the people who to give access to, which is probably not bad, because maybe that's how private groups in GitLab work anyway. If you want someone to, you know, see into your private group, you kind of got to give them the permission to. So maybe that's okay for us to tell people to do that.
Yeah.
So it's more like an operator running CAS has to then go and say, yes, you and you have access to it, rather than developers requesting in. But that's if they choose to have that private, and maybe.
That's in the case where the CAS manifest project is private.
Private. Yes.
We don't care about what projects want to have, we want to give access to, because that's going to be the next.
So on the other side, so let's say I'm running a CAS agent, but I have a development group that I don't see that is private. And that does happen, because some companies have special teams that, like, this is top secret. Maybe they're doing a HR system or some data that, you know, they don't want everyone to see. So, you know, I think that's okay. Like, if they're like, I've got this private project I don't see, but I want it to use my CAS agent, I think that's probably okay. Obviously, there's proviso that if they're requesting that CAS agent and I'm running that CAS agent, in theory, in a very kind of black hat kind of way, I could manipulate the CAS agent which pulls down the code to actually get access to that code. So we can't guarantee it as a truly secure model, but typically in that way, the operators running CAS are most likely have root permissions on on the infrastructure anyway. So they're already trusted at some level. So I think with a private project coming out into like a less privileged CAS, that's probably easier, because we can just say, well, the person running that CAS has some level of trust anyway. But it's really when you've got that private CAS and then there's potentially all these other projects outside that level of trust that are trying to get into it.
Okay, so we're discussing, well, a flow outside of GitLab. So somebody actively going to the CAS maintainer and asking for access, or asking them to add their project to the CAS managed projects, if that makes sense. So maybe I can come to Graeme. Graeme is a maintainer of the CAS, and I can say, hey, I have this Hello World project. Please add it to the agent. And then if my project is private, then a push notification will come so that I give the agent access to my project. So we have a bit of an offline communication here. Maybe
Yes.
we could convert that into online sometime in the future. So send requests from GitLab somehow if we see there is a need for a use case. But
Well,
I think,
as I said, I think you're right, but we just have to be careful with online the reason online notifications are tricky is because you don't want people to be able to try and determine information of groups that do and don't exist by phishing, basically, for CAS agents that they can't see. The offline part, while bad, at least it's, for you to come to me and say, hey, I want access to your private CAS, I must have told you, and I must have told you, hey, come to me. There's some level of trust I've already established outside of GitLab to communicate to that you. And if I haven't said anything to you, you'd never know it exists. You'd never ask me. So I guess that's that kind of offline, well, offline, probably all online anyway, with video, but that human to human or email or documentation or some other outside specifically GitLab method of communication. And obviously I would love to bring that into GitLab as well. We just have to be careful how we do that.
Yes, by notification I meant email because João yesterday said when a member wants to get access to a private project, this is how an email is sent to them, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
For that.
Sure. I think email, okay, that would make more sense. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, I think emails are okay.
Yeah, because at least I can, if I'm like, actually, I don't want this access to this person, I just ignore the email, and then nothing kind of, they don't get any immediate response back with that stuff. I think that's probably okay.
And that email would take you to your screen of your private project where you can assign the agent. Okay, so from an UX perspective, does it make sense to go to the agent to give access to the project? Or I know you're from the operator side, but if you could put your developer hat. As a developer, would you want to do the other way around things? So go to your project and somehow, instead of going to me and asking for CAS access, try to give access to the agent. I don't know, does the flow make sense, basically, to add to the agent the projects instead of adding the agents to the projects? That sounded a bit confusing.
Yeah, no, I see. So do you add projects to the agent or do you add agents to the project? That is a very interesting question. So it's a tricky one because definitely as an operator who's like, so I'm going to run a CAS that's connecting to my production cluster or whatever, it is good for me to see it at a glance. I think it's a really interesting problem because I always think of CAS agents, as my domain, this is what I think about, whereas a developer is always just thinking about their project. They don't care about anyone else's project. So I'm trying to provide an answer, but I really kind of don't have one because you've got two people looking at things from two different perspectives. I would have to have a bit of a think about that, of which way to go. But definitely I think the other question might be is, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, are we saying that projects to CAS agents is a one-to-one? A project can never have multiple CAS agents?
No, they can.
Okay, so that also makes things a little bit trickier. And it would make sense, right? You might have a CAS agent in a staging cluster, you might have one in a production cluster.
Yeah, and they will sync different folders or something like that.
Sure, yeah. So the model... So if a project request comes to me that says, I, as this project, would like access to your CAS agent, then I would expect to go to the CAS agent screen and approve that. If I had preemptively added a project, so if I, as the operator, had said, I'm going to go and add this project and this project, I would probably expect the project owners to get notified and said, hey, this person has granted you access to the CAS agent. would you like to add it? You don't have to. Does that? So it's kind of who initiates the flow, maybe, or is this not the question? I could be getting it wrong as well.
No, it's who initiates the flow. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just thought about what you said about secret groups and the agent sitting in one of them. So how would you see the agent in that case? You would have to.
That's basically that's the problem. That's why if your manifest project is secret, I don't think there's any way a developer can ever request access. I think that's just probably a hard rule we have to make.
Yeah.
I know it's not great for workflow, but it's just one of those things you're just gonna have to say, you know what, we just can't do. You have to do it one way, or
yeah, unless we find out down the line that people don't mind having public agents.
Yeah,
but
I mean, certainly it could change.
Yeah, we don't know that yet, right? We don't know.
Especially tricky for GitLab.com, because even if I'm in like some project here, and I start requesting access to like T-Mobile, you know, like, or some of our customers or something, like I can just, you know, we don't want that kind of people can just start fishing everywhere, which is why they're very much like, if your manifest project is, if you as a user can't see the manifest project, then you should just really have no way to even try and get in. Try and fish, because the other option is, even if they request like access to a private project, we don't want people who are confused about GitLab or just don't understand what's going on to see these emails come through and then just click them, and, you know, all of a sudden they've got different projects deploying into their clusters. Because I can definitely see that, like, and on all of the attacks we get, I can definitely see people just starting, I'm just going to start spamming Cass, you know, agent invitations. So
yeah, definitely.
There's no easy answer, especially when it comes to security, unfortunately, but we're just going to, at least for the start, maybe we just try and be really restrictive, and then maybe we kind of open up as we understand things more.
Yeah. So we can definitely split the problem into two, like one where the projects involved exist within the same group, and then the other one is like across the group boundary.
Yeah.
The question is, okay, do we have two experiences? So one for private projects where you have to do the offline asking access, and one for public ones. So if the public project, can you go in and add your agent to your project?
It's already the case now. So
okay, so
there's no adding. It's because it's public. We assume that it's readable. So it's like it's a public book at the library. Anyone can read it. Same principle.
Okay, and then do I see it in the list of books that I manage?
No, this library doesn't record who borrows books. We just read it and sync it. Yeah.
But in the future, let's say you don't need to specifically give access to public projects, but you are deploying with your agent these projects. So you already deploy a manifest with your agent, if I'm using the right terminology. Right now, you cannot see on the agent level that it manages this project, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Once we start adding access to other projects by the agent, how do we capture the public ones in the list of projects that this agent? If you don't specifically give access. Do we know that an agent has dealings with a manifest project that is public without specifically saying so?
Oh, we don't know, can't. It just thinks it. I mean, Cass knows about it, like the actual syncer knows about it, but on the GitLab side, we don't know about it. So that's a very good question, because say, for example, we want to show the status, right, of say, like here's our manifest.yaml, did it actually sync, or is it in the process of syncing, or did it error out, right? So if we don't have that link, does it even make sense to just randomly show the status of a random agent? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. It sounds like we are just randomly running runner on your project. which is really weird.
Or do we have to just be like, we just stick to the GitLab visibility model, and if you're a private project, you have to deploy your own CAS? Like, you know, we designed CAS so you could run multiple copies of CAS in one cluster. Do we just say, okay, if you're going to do, you know, if there's something that's across the security boundary, you're just going to have to deploy another CAS, and we're just going to keep things simple and keep every CAS within its own security boundary?
Like
That's another
group.
option. We just have to it may be trickier because obviously like you might have the one cluster that's running like 3 or 4 CAS, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that keeps everyone, especially if those CAS agents aren't running with full admin privileges, which I assume they probably wouldn't in this case. Maybe that's another way, is just we're going to stick to a very GitLab permissions model. And if you try and do anything across that, unfortunately, you're just going to have to deploy an extra CAS. Is that another way?
Sorry, I'm a bit confused about the solution. So
sure, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you have a, you know, you got a company and they've got, you know, one Kubernetes cluster, what have you, they deploy one CAS and it's got certain visibility levels. And then we're talking, you know, because we're talking about like there might be private projects, or maybe the CAS agent is private. So we're talking about that cross security boundary. And so maybe I'm saying another solution to this whole problem is to not make it a problem and say, we cannot do CAS agents across security boundaries. If you have one group, project, whatever, that's a higher security than the lower one, you have to deploy an entirely other CAS agent with a higher security level, you know, into that security level, into that manifest project in that private group. Like, we basically say we will never cross security boundaries at all. And then all of our problems are solved because we can, the visibility of what we want to do in the workflow is just simple. And the downside to that is, you know, people having to deploy more CAS agents, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it just makes everyone simpler. Syncing status is simpler because we just draw the lines and say there is never any situation where a CAS agent is crossing any kind of security boundary.
That's an interesting idea. So would you be annoyed by that as a user, or would you be okay? Would you need to clone an agent if you knew that this is the agent you want, but then if it's private, you don't have access to it?
I guess think of it this way: as a developer, you want to deploy your code. You want to get it into the Kubernetes cluster or wherever it's going. You want it to do that. Obviously, if someone set up a CAS agent, it's nice to just go click a button and it all happens magically. That's very nice. But the reality is, you know, that, you know, security is there. You know, it's these problems are tricky. Maybe if you're a group within a company that like, we're doing extra secure work, we're doing high security work, maybe it's not unreasonable to say, well, then you also need to spend a little bit of extra effort and deploy your own high security CAS. I would probably do that anyway, to be honest. To me, I would happily deploy 2 CAS agents, one for my team that's high security and one for low security, just so I can mentally keep things a little bit separate anyway. And also, you know, just so I'm ensuring that I know the permissions and who's deploying what, and there's less chance of any kind of security issue. So maybe that is just the other way we look at this, is we don't shy away from saying deploying multiple CAS agents if you need it. You know, we don't have to have the one.
Just the one on the group level. Okay, unless we, okay, I'll discuss this with Victor. This is a
I think Victor is already planning to split the issue into 2, and then we'll solve this. Like currently, we'll just solve this with private projects, because right now, you know, public project has no problem. And then there is another issue that's coming up. This is cross-group stuff, right? But I think it's worthwhile thinking about these hard rules in the beginning, so that whether I had to change tag immediately. I think that's definitely a worthwhile consideration, like having these hard boundaries, because there's still ways around it. Like if I'm motivated enough, I can just say, here's a manifest project. I shall do a mirror to another manifest project that crosses the group boundary, and it crosses the group boundary in the same group as the CAS project, and then suddenly I'm sweet. I have the permissions to set it up, right? So that also simplifies a few things then, because if we assume like a hard within a group thing, then suddenly we can say the manifest project can just choose from a list of agents from a group, always.
Yeah. And that's what I'm thinking. It will make our in GitLab development's life easier. And I don't think it's too much extra effort for users in those very specific, because hopefully most of our customers are fairly just, simple groups. I don't think it's unreasonable for people with extra security requirements to impose, extra deployments or whatever on top of them, because they probably understand the reason, that they need that.
Okay, let's see. Which of the two solutions do you think is good for a big company where the roles are separate and more distinct? And which solution is better for a smaller company? I think I know the answer already, but or do you think neither of them is good for a big company?
I think for a big company, so a big company, probably a lot of projects, probably more likely to have more complicated security problems, probably got a bigger infrastructure, bigger cluster, bigger what have you. I think the idea of just hard model, one agent for the secure group, one agent for the other is not a big deal. They already have to manage a lot. So, it's a very little, adding one extra repo or one extra step to them is not as big a deal. Their clusters are probably so big, adding more CAS agents is not a big deal. And once again, in terms of resources. For the smaller groups, maybe it is a little bit of extra complication for them, but it's a real question of how many smaller groups, smaller companies do we have where they've got a very complicated security model. I don't know if there's a way for us to determine that, but that's probably the downside is, if you're a small company, you've got like a very small cluster, deploying extra CAS agents is, maybe more overhead than what they would like, but I don't know how many people we have where they're running such a small thing, but also got very complicated security.
Yeah, usually it's more flexible in smaller companies, at least in the beginning.
So there are user considerations as well to have the whole request permissions thing. So I mean, we can still do the request permissions thing even with a hard, the hard boundary thing. Mainly, the main user consideration is the search problem. So from a list of agents, it's really hard to see like what each agent does. So I would be like, even within the same group, we kind of hesitant to say I grant my project. I suppose it's okay. It's okay because everyone within the group can still read it. But it's just that if I grant my project to the wrong agent and then start syncing it, I don't know. It's just a little bit harder.
So I think you're saying you would prefer to do it from the agent side. So from the agent, you give access to your manifest.
Yeah, it is. It is as well. Because also the other thing currently is that how to say, only the people who maintain the CAS project or the config project knows about the list of agents currently. That's basic infrastructure. That's infrastructure stuff. So I don't know. Maybe I as an infrastructure team don't like exposing my infrastructure to the rest of my company or my group. Who knows? It's the same principle right now. Like our Kubernetes clusters are not exposed to developers, right? Yeah. So like I feel like kind of hesitant to expose the list of agents to my whole group. Say in the case of GitLab, for example, that will mean that I would be exposing all my agents to I don't know, 1,200 people.
Yeah.
And then somebody might use it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, it's just information, right? So information is another line of defense, and also if you have the list of information, that information might leak. A lot of issues. Like if I name my agent like something bad agent.com, it leaks to the whole group. Someone within the group leaks it out to the press. I don't know, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I propose to start with discussing the hard boundaries. That's one thing. Then discuss from the agent side the authorization to private projects and email notification for access. As a second, I guess, solution, if we are going to start with hard boundaries, then we probably don't have notification for the beginning. I don't see how these two would work together. If we say we have hard boundaries and then we say, okay, you're gonna also request access, then we can don't enforce the hard boundaries. So in my mind is one or the other, unless I'm missing something. Sorry, we're quite over time.
Yeah, I've got to actually run. I'm really sorry. This has been really good, and I'm very interested in the outcome. But unfortunately, I've got to.
Thank you so much for joining.
That's all right. But feel free to continue on without me. But I've got to bounce.
Right.
Yeah, let me know what the outcome and the discussion is. I'm very interested in following along.
I'll include you in the discussion. Thank you so much for joining.
That's all right. Thanks very much.
Have a good night.
I'll talk to you both later.
You too. Actually, I'm wrong. I just realized I am wrong.
About?
Oh, no. I'm slightly wrong. So the current situation is that if I set up a project Kubernetes cluster, that's private to my project. But if I set up the name of my Kubernetes
project.
Yes. Yeah. But if I set up a group Kubernetes cluster, that's public.
Then people can see it in your group. Yes.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to say before. But in that sense, Victor, I don't completely understand the moving away from group and project agents and clusters, but
Oh, we're not. I don't think we're not. I don't think we are. It's just that the issue with group Kubernetes cluster right now is that there is no project to store anything for. Right? Yeah. So it's easier to start from the perspective of always having a project or a repository to store things, and then you can always promote it to the group level for other things within the group to share.
So it's a similar problem with the agent, I guess.
Yeah, as in there needs to be an explicit user action to share a resource with the whole group. It cannot be like implicit. It cannot be like I add it and then suddenly it's available to all the whole group.
Okay, so do you think in terms of options, instead the one we discussed, if we go with a notification solution, do you think there is another solution of I want everybody to be in my group to be able to use the agent, so you make it publicly available?
Well, you can make it a few levels, right? You can make it publicly available, which is really weird. That's like instance level, sorry, when I say publicly available. But you can make it available within the group, right? Which is so it's really the equivalent of promoting the agent to be a group agent.
Yeah. And then also we need to solve for how you connect. You still need to go and give access to the projects, even if they're public. If you want to list them on the agent side, correct? You have to do this manual work.
That is correct. So we have 3 use cases here. So it's project to project, and then project to group to project, and then do we want project to instance to project? Nah, we don't worry about that.
Probably not.
We'll never worry about that. So 2 use cases.
Project to project. Are you working on this, or has it moved to 13.7?
I need to tell Victor we need to move it to 13.7 because his roadmap is saying it's on 13.7, and we are still designing this on 13.6. So
yeah, so no, I don't think it's feasible.
Yeah.
Completely. Okay, I think.
So project to project and group. Yeah. And then
Or
there's a
project.
third use case. We should add a third use case, which is the public project thing, which is very that has to be a separate follow-up, I guess.
So there might be a third use case of the public. So you mean instance?
No, public project. So the first use case is project to private project, and then the second use case is project to group to private project. And then the third use case is project to public project, because which we currently already allow, but there's no connection.
It's not visible anywhere, basically.
Yeah, so like maybe that's not a problem. It's not a problem right now, but the moment we want to show like your file has been synced, then it raises a lot of questions.
Like you see it on the agent, but then you have no idea what
No,
file
yeah,
went
it'll be
from.
like your file has been synced by this agent, but where? What? Who
What?
synced my file? I never authorized this agent ever. What? You know? But maybe transparency says we should do that. But then
Yeah.
that raises a few problems where people will start. Will people start spamming each other?
I hope not, because it's probably a working
That'll be
environment.
that'll be a lot of work just to spam someone else. Like, you know, I shall configure agent, I shall install a real cluster, and then I shall do it,
I'll
and
show spam my colleague.
and then I shall sync their YAML, and then it says error. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't. Okay,
You mean
I
have open boundaries?
no. Maybe we shouldn't show like. Okay, let's just. I'm just thinking like for the third use case, right? Maybe we don't show the status at all. Like we don't show the sync status because it's public. So unless you explicitly unless you explicitly set the
That I want to see.
yeah, unless you explicitly connect the agent. So you know.
So the sync status, would that be something? It would be something on the screen, right? You have a list of projects, and then
Yeah,
there is a sync status for it in the agent.
There'll be there's not a sync status on the agent. It will be a sync status on the manifest
On
side.
the manifest project.
I have this proposal. I don't know whether people are gonna accept it or not, but on the manifest side, there's lots of files. I want to see which files have been synced and which files have errored and which files have not been synced, for example.
And then, will you see anything on the agent side? So if you have a list of projects that the agent is deploying, will you see the status of each?
Yeah, we can do that.
In the agent.
Yeah. But that is less. Is that less useful? More useful? It's probably less useful. It's
Who
because.
cares about that?
Sorry.
Who is the person who cares about the status of the project? Is it the operator or the developer?
My assumption is always that it's the same person. Like it's the same person that will, the operator, or my assumption is that the operator will manage both the CAS project and the manifest.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So.
But if you want to see the status of all the projects of your agent, then you would have to navigate to each manifest project, right, to see the status. Or is a use case I'm in my project and I only care about this project at this moment and not about the rest of the projects.
Yes.
Okay, that's the assumption that you're looking at one.
Yeah, we're looking at one at a time because that's what projects are for.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good start for me. Maybe next steps would be to send the video to Victor and Nicholas, ask them what do they think about hard boundaries. And if not, continue with working on the notifications solution. What do you think?
I think I would think that at this stage, for me, it's the hard boundaries plus the notification solution.
how is the notification used if there are hard boundaries?
So in that, I think we still, firstly, I think we still want the option of having agents that are only private to projects, the project maintainer, unless the project maintainers choose to expose them to other projects. Okay. So if we don't have the requesting and have the other way of doing things, which is the manifest project can choose from a list of projects of the group, and we're essentially saying that there is no private, there is no project level agents. It's all group level agents, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. So this is where I want. I think that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so the private agents have boundaries, but you can have group level agents as well.
Yeah.
Is that right? And then this is where you would ask for permission of, well, access, even though you don't need it, just to add the agent to your manifest.
I think once someone has made their agent a group agent, then they don't need to ask access again, because you know the CAS project maintainer has already given access to the whole group. Then the second step, where the manifest project then is to give access to the agent, yeah, or add the agent to the manifest project. Yeah, that still needs to happen as well.
Yeah, even though you said it's already open, it's already allowed, but I think we should add this step for visibility and connection.
What's already allowed? Sorry.
That the agents can be used by manifest projects if both are public.
Oh yeah. If both, I think if both are public, then you don't need to add anything. But what we're talking about here is private groups and private projects. So,
okay,
which is most likely the case for infrastructure.
Okay. If both are public, we need to figure out a way to show information.
Yeah, I think that's like way out of scope for public stuff.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So this whole thing is about authorization and private.
I'm
projects.
taking notes, separate issue.
Yeah, and
I
think we got some good notes in the agenda. So.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, but definitely, if we can summarize this, that'd be good.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I was taking notes of the 3 cases, but
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Great. I think we are close to the solution, closer than we were last week. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a good chat with Graeme. I think Graeme had some good ideas. So yeah.
Fingers crossed. Okay.
All right. I'll
cool.
stop the
We'll
recording
be
now.